Good evening, everybody. My name is Raul Flores. I'm your MC for the evening. Before we get started, I would like to cover some housekeeping so our online streaming audience can hear the candidates' comments. Please silence all cell phones, hold applause, and refrain from shouting out comments until both candidates have spoken on the question from the moderator and have a chance to rebut. We appreciate your consideration for those who are attending online. Now, I would like to introduce your host to kick off this event, Kate Manley, President and CEO for the Apopka Area Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. Welcome to the Apopka Area Chamber of Commerce, Apopka's Mayoral Debate. I'm Kate Manley, the president of the Apopka Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to our sponsors, Duke Energy and Business Force. Thank you so much for sponsoring so we can put this together. Thank you also to our members of our board of directors, our trustee investors, and our chamber members, and we also want to thank all of you from the community for your attendance in person and online. We're also pleased to be joined by several media outlets, including our local Fox affiliate. Actually, I think they're not here yet. The Orlando Sentinel, the Apopka Chief Implanter, the Apopka Voice, and our video streaming providers Pop-Up Marketing, as well as Bridge Creative. So thank you again for coming in, making sure everybody has access to this information. I'd also like to invite everyone to mark your calendar for this Thursday at 11 a.m. for the City Center groundbreaking at Hilton Garden Inn, which will have a reception to follow. So that's this week. Please join us at that groundbreaking. Now I'd like to go ahead and invite Alexander Smith to please come up and lead us in a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
If you would, bow your heads for a moment of prayer. Our Father, the creator of every human on this earth, we come now this hour to first to say thank you. As we come tonight, Lord, we want to first thank you for the service that these servants have given to this community, the difference they've made in the lives of the individuals that live here. And as we come tonight, realizing that we all have varying opinions, that we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs. But let us come together tonight on one accord. Let us feel your spirit in this place, that you would give us a spirit of peace, a spirit of cooperation, a spirit of respect. We pray for these two candidates at this forum tonight, that you would lead them, guide them, that you would have them to be pleasing and acceptable in your sight, and that all that they shall say and do will be in your name. Our Father, we just say thank you for the citizens of this great city, for this is a great place to work, live, and to play. In thy Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to introduce our moderator, but before I do, I'll share the format for today's function. If you look at the back of your program card, you'll also see it listed there. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute introduction. We will then go into the moderator-posed questions, which were submitted by the community members through the Chamber survey on our website. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. Time will be kept by our MC, Rollo, and the candidates will be advised when 30 seconds remain and then when time is up. If the other candidate would like to offer a clarifying rebuttal, they will have a 1 minute to do so. At the conclusion of the moderator-posed questions this evening, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. The questions for this debate, again, were submitted by members of the community. Please refrain from applause and chatter until both candidates have responded so those who are streaming may be able to hear. Again, thank you, and it's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, who I've kept in secret for a long time, Joel Silver with Silver Digital Media. Please approach the podium for us.
Okay. Hello, everybody. The rumors of Tom Brady being your secret moderator were not true, it turns out. But we do have the next best thing. I'm here, and I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Joel Silver. I've been in digital media across the entire state for over 25 years, producing stuff in the realm of government, in politics, tourism, and all sorts of things. So I have a great knowledge, and I've been all over the state. But the one place I have never been is Apopka. And that is why I was chosen, I think, because we wanted somebody completely non-biased and that can ask fair questions. In fact, I am not even making up the questions. I am not the important thing here. It is the important people are on stage, and all of you who have submitted questions, both in the room and online, and I will just simply be reading those questions, and that will be my role tonight. So, if you all are ready, and if you all are ready, let's go ahead and start tonight's debate. Now, I think it's really cool what we've done here, and the organizers at the Apopka Chamber really have come up with a great idea to let the citizens submit the questions. So I myself have reviewed all of the questions that have come in. I have chosen the questions. We will see how many we can get to, and we will move through the night like that. And we're going to start with this one, which is interesting because in politics, you often hear people that are in the know say they know what the issues are and what the important issues are. But when you hear from the citizens, that is a lot of times even more important and sometimes not what you expect. But I will tell you, the number one issue of all the questions that came in was about restaurants. Okay? And that doesn't surprise, I'm sure, any of you. So the first question will be to both of you.
We're doing intros? We do introduction?
They will be to both of you after your opening statement. Yes, where's my agenda? Okay, so what we will do first, you will have a 2-minute opening statement. Mr. Nelson, Mr. Becker, you both have an option to do that, and we will start with Mr. Becker.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Hold on. I pause the time to make sure this is
Good. You're good.
Good. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Well, first off, thanks to the Chamber for hosting tonight's debate. I'm Commissioner Kyle Becker. I'm a 2-time commissioner of Seat 4 and a 15-year resident of Apopka. In addition to my commissioner role, I've worked for large corporations over the last 20 years in senior and executive level positions where I've hired and developed talented teams as well as performed it with large corporate budgets. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time as a commissioner, and I stand by my record, but we've reached an impasse here in Apopka. Apopka's stale, both in what it looks like today, and more importantly, what we hope for it to look like tomorrow. My platform is not overly complicated because I don't think that we're doing the basic things today. If elected, I will beautify our city, not with coats of paint, but with proper care and artistic creativity. I will invest in our infrastructure improvements today, not after lengthy studies. I will invest in our economic development so that we can control our destiny and deliver on the quality of life amenities that our residents are requesting. But most importantly, I will lead. I will lead with a properly staffed department and workforce motivated for the betterment of this city as well as its people. But tonight we're here to show contrast.
30 seconds.
And so some of that is based off of our understanding of our financial fact. My opponent here 4 years ago ran on the idea of getting the financial house in order, citing that our general fund reserves was at $30 million and had gone down to 3. During my time on council, it has not gone below 8, and it's certainly not above 30. So facts are important. He's also going to come in here and say that our tax rate is the lowest, or he's lowered our taxes. Our tax rate has gone from 3.78 to 4.18 during his tenure, an 11% increase. Facts matter.
Time.
On his website, I'll finish this thought. On his website, it says the first thing that's on his website in terms of campaign promises is that he's ended wasteful deficit spending. Our most recent budget was balanced with $1.5 million out of our general fund. If he's not clear on those points, he shouldn't be voted in for another 4 years. I appreciate your vote on March 8th.
Thank you, sir. We are going to try to keep everybody to their time. Yes. And if you need extra time, you can take it out of your next answer. Okay. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Chamber. Thank you, Business Force and Duke, for putting this forum on. Yes, I'm born and raised here in Apopka, proud of it. My family's here, my mother's here. My father just passed away last year. My daughter and my son here lives right down the street. This town means a lot to me. It's what I grew up, and I want that hometown feel to continue. I was a Chamber of Commerce president. If you want to look at my resume, look at all the committees I've been on, all of the organizations I've been a part of, Apopka-based, Apopka Rotary, Apopka Elks, Apopka Sertoma. The list goes on and on. Apopka Chamber for 40 years. So I've been there. I've been in the trenches helping you every day of the year. When we look at the money, yes, infrastructure is important. Look at these lights. Look at the floor. This is brand new floor we put in with money that we had saved from being a steward of our resources, our financial resources. Yes, we raised taxes. We had to under the COVID. But what we did reduce the taxes last year, and my opponent, he didn't vote for the decrease in taxes. So while everybody's hurting from COVID, I was willing to step up and reduce your taxes by $400,000. I'm the right guy for the next 4 years. Money still matters. And yes, we can talk about the money. It gets a little down in the weeds, but I'd love to talk about how we spent the money, how we saved the money, and what we can do to make this city a better place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, folks, now we're going to move into the question period. Again, I have a notebook here full of questions. We're going to see how many we can get to in an hour, and these, again, submitted by residents of Apopka. And as I said, the biggest issue, and I've consolidated many of these, and we're going to read just one of them about the restaurants. Given the recent additions of the IHOP and the coming First Watch restaurants, Apopka suffers from a lack of better quality restaurants, requiring citizens to drive to nearby communities like Mount Dora, Eustis, and others. What is being done to pursue better dining opportunities? And we will start with Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Joel. Well, a couple of interesting, just today I had a meeting with Francisco's out of Maitland that's looking to maybe come to the town center. We'll have the groundbreaking on Thursday for the food hall with a brewery, and we'll have Starbucks coming in with the same town center feel. We feel like we got restaurants, Rodney Scott's coming to the Floridian Town Center, which will be a Beard award-winning restaurant. We've got some of the ones we've just brought in in the last couple of years. We've got Propagate, we've got Birchwood, we've got Willie Mae's, we've got Cece's. Restaurants are coming to Apopka, but what it takes to bring a restaurant is an infrastructure based on jobs. The jobs have to be here. Jobs come first, then restaurants follow. We've added over 1,500 jobs here in the last 18 months, even with COVID. And so the restaurants now are starting to take a look at Apopka and say, okay, this is the place I want to be. This is the place I want to come to. And just got back from Tallahassee last week. Was there for a committee meeting. We're adding, trying to get our restaurants to lower the threshold for a liquor license that will give them the opportunity to sell liquor at a lot lower price because of the license is over $100,000 if you're under 150 seats. So that'll go a long way toward inviting those restaurants, the small, 80 to 150 seat restaurants, to come into Apopka because obviously alcohol is a big seller and they need that to make the numbers work for restaurants. Thank you.
This is a question for both of you, so each of you will get 2 minutes to respond to that question, and if you do want a 1-minute rebuttal after, we can do that. Yes, sir.
Sure. Keep it very easy. You don't have to look far to understand. Whenever we talk about restaurants or places that we go to on a daily basis or a weekend basis, we all kind of in our head know exactly what we're talking about. Some people might be Winter Garden, some people it might be Sanford, others may be Mount Dora or other locations. And what do those all have in common? They all have economic development directors or programs that are very intentional about why those things come to their cities. We could sit here and talk about future tense all day long, groundbreakings and paper announcements, but use your eyes as that test. What have you seen lately? We need to have economic development that goes out and sells the vision of our city, understanding what our city is all about, who lives here, what's upcoming. They have to go out and proactively seek those. I did recently in the past talk with Darden Restaurants. They came and met with them at City Hall. They've got 2 primary metrics that they judge locations to come to: daily vehicle count and trade population. City of Apopka, between our 2 zip codes, we have well over 100,000 people, well within their wheelhouse. We have the daily vehicle counts to support it on 436 and 441. It's a matter of us going out and knocking on their door and staying at their door until they commit to coming to places like here. People don't know what they don't know in Apopka. And unless we're actually outbound marketing our city, we're always going to get what we get. And granted, my opponent mentioned some great places, Propagate, Three Odd Guys. Yes, they're coming, but those locations are dependent upon larger brands coming too, because it creates accidental traffic for them. People have to intentionally go to these places, and if they don't, what Propagate and Three Odd Guys wants is other sit-down dining restaurants that after they're done with their dinner, they accidentally go and patronize their business. Economic development is what it needs to be done. Other cities have proven it. We need to do it ourselves.
Very good. Mr. Nelson, any rebuttal?
Well, we'll go back. I know that Commissioner Becker, Commissioner Ayersmith, and Mayor Joe Kilsheimer have brought in Darden restaurants. So obviously, all three of them couldn't bring them to town. So I don't think that's a fair argument. But, we've got the things are in place now. In the next 18 months, I think you're going to see a lot of restaurants coming. With the Floridian Town Center, we've got 2 Beard Award-winning restaurants coming there. We've got Starbucks coming. We've got the Francisco's, hopefully. I've been meeting with those folks. When you talk about economic development, who do you want to meet with? An economic development director or the mayor of Apopka, who is not only the economic development director, but he's also one of 5 votes that gets things done. Ask Propagate what I was able to do for them when they asked about the land next to them, which is basically a retention pond. I said, hey, let's put up, I'll give you the ability to use that land, put some outdoor tables out there. It's perfect. You keep the grass mowed, you get additional seating, we all win. So those are the kind of things that as a mayor, a strong mayor form of government, like the other cities aren't, that's where we make a big difference by being the mayor.
I get a 1-minute rebuttal on that one. Yes. And I'm not trying to represent that I'm the economic development for our city. I think there's a separation of roles. I'm not trying to say that as a strong mayor, I'm out doing economic development with Dardens of the world. We need to have someone in place to do that specifically. And to your point, you've served in that role. You've worn that hat, even though you're the strong mayor form of government. And you were quoted in a local media outlet saying that you've met with all these industrial businesses, multi-billion-dollar companies. And the end of that quote purely stated, it hasn't borne any fruit yet, but it's not for lack of trying. If it hasn't worked for 4 years, why should we continue down that path for another 4?
That is sort of where we're going to go for our next question. And we're going to stay on economic development because that is really was so prevalent in all of the questions. I'm going to give you a very general question again to both of you, and it is this. What is your plan for economic development, and how is it different from your opponent? We'll start this time.
Well, my plan is to actually have a department that's focused on that. There isn't currently one today. We've made minimal investments in terms of economic development in our city. Over the course of the past 6 years on my council through 2 administrations, I would say our largest annual expenditure has been $50,000, which was last year for a website. So creating the programs in which to succeed. And the role charter for an economic development program is to go around our city and understand who the owners are, what the land entitlements are, understanding what those owners of those lands are trying to do in a 5-10 year period of time, and then going out to the broader community outside of our borders of Apopka to say, hey, owner A over here has got certain entitlements. I know that you're looking for a place to expand or relocate. Let's create that partnership. But having that accountable to our council, accounting to the city, accountable to the people that are holding us accountable as their representatives. The campaign trail is where you get a lot of feedback, and it's the true litmus test of whether or not you're going down the right path or not. I have not swayed in my desire to have economic development, a targeted program, a director leading that during my time, the 3 campaigns that I've been on, and it's very well received. So I'm not making up, this isn't Kyle Becker talking. This is the residents of Apopka and what their demands are. Too often they talk about going outside of the borders of our city. It's time for us to have all these options close to home, and if people want to stay in Apopka, they can. And I think economic development is the roadmap to do that.
Yes, well, let's talk about industrial complexes. We've had a lot going on. We've got a lot coming up on industrial, buildings and hopefully some light manufacturing. I was able to work with the OEP, Orlando Economic Partnership, to get the top 10 sites in Central Florida, not just Orange County, in Central Florida, right there at the airport. So we've got the opportunity to create, could be as north of 1,000 jobs right there. Well, jobs create opportunities for restaurants and shopping. So that's what we need. They've also, the industrial we've already put in place last year alone, 1/3 of all the new property taxes that you and I don't have to pay are being paid by industrial who take the least amount of services. They don't need a lot of police. They don't need the fire. They don't need Parks and Rec. And what's so really cool about that is we had Amazon came in, put their project together up and out in 6 months, and when they got done with the project, gave me a $50,000 fan, the exhaust fan, so we can pull the smoke out of big industrial buildings so our firefighters can get in there and make something happen. So industrial will rule the day. It will make the economic development of Apopka grow in those jobs that we're looking for, those restaurants we're looking for, those shopping opportunities will come because we've got high-paying jobs here in the city of Apopka.
So, industrial is great. I was on council prior to my opponent's administration where we laid the groundwork for where Goya and Coca-Cola and Amazon are expanding now. That industrial sparked the residential or the industrial boom that you're seeing right now. And which is it? Do households create economic development opportunity? Do jobs? Is it a combination thereof? Who's coming and looking at our books to say how many jobs are in the city of Apopka unless we're outbound telling people about us? So industrial, when's the last time you all went to an industrial location for entertainment or to get a bite to eat? Industrial, yes, it's great for our tax base, but we have to be very mixed in our development. And I would argue that maybe it's not a frequency of calls in terms of fire, but certainly specialized equipment, specialized training to respond to industrial type of development is certainly key for the city of Apopka. From my understanding, when Coca-Cola was first created, they've got stuff there that was very sensitive and needed specialized training and response. So, to disregard and say that industrial is going to solve all of our problems from an economic development, I don't think that's the case. We have to have a program, a director in place. Again, all of the cities that we benchmark ourselves against have this in place. We've got to do what makes sense and what works.
Name another city, though, that has a strong mayor form of government, and that's my point, is that we, as a mayor of a strong government, we can make things happen. We are one of 5 votes that when we can bring something to the table. When I shake your hand, you know you got 1 vote when it comes to city council. So those are the kind of things that people want to know. When I met with some folks from Texas, we didn't end up getting, I think they went to South Carolina. Wow, we're meeting with the mayor. Yes, out at the railroad. And so they understand and appreciate that you've got somebody there that's in their corner that's trying to make things happen, and that those $50,000 to $75,000 jobs start to make restaurants make sense for the citizens here of Apopka. They have to have a lunch crowd. I mean, people talk about, restaurants in a vacuum. If you're working downtown and you're coming back home at night, you're only getting 1 shot at a meal. Whereas if you've got, industrial jobs here staying here, then they've got lunch and dinner. You look right out by where the Coca-Cola and Goya and Amazon are. We've got little restaurants been closed. Woodshed been closed. Everybody knows where Woodshed is. Been closed for 3, 4, 5 years. It's now going to be a barbecue restaurant. Is that happenstance? Don't think so.
Okay, next question is something that has been all over social media. I'm going to give you guys only 2 minutes each to reply to it, and there will be no rebuttal needed, I don't think. But this was an interesting one. We heard a lot of it. Is it true that there's $31 million cash in the city at a local bank, and how could it be put to taxpayers' use? And this time, we'll start with Mr. Nelson.
You're absolutely right. I think we have north of $100 million in 4 banks. The bank we're talking about, who's a friend of mine and also donated the maximum to my account, his interest rates were per year, about almost $20,000 more than the next highest bank that offered to put money in the bank. We had a $5 million CD that was paying over 2%, and it's now only paying like 0.1 or something. So we took the best option, and just happens to be a good friend of mine. We reached out to all the local banks. Of the $100 million, they've got $31 million. They are 100% insured. It's a whole different plan. I mean, some of these people out on social media talk about it's not insured, but up to $250,000. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, interesting question. I don't know how this moves the needle in terms of tonight's debate. But short order is, I periodically ask during council what our current balance is in our general fund reserve, because again, we need to know how secure we are as a city. And granted, where we put our money, there's 2 driving principles at play. what's the pricing that we're going to get on those funds so they can maximize our return while money is sitting dormant, as well as what are the protections in place? Is it at a financial institution that is properly secured? Do they have proper liquidity and to make sure that there's reduced risk in us having money there? But at the end of the day, if we're having money sit around just for a rainy day and not putting into critical spend needs that we have as a city, we're doing a disservice to everybody in this room as well as the people that work for the city of Apopka. It's not a good place to be if we've got money not being used or expended when we have critical resources. And I don't know if the question is going to come up, but I always go back to it. We've got critical staffing needs in our fire department, apparatus staffing. I asked a point-blank question during our budget workshops of our chief. If money was not an object, would the staffing model that I support be the one that you support? The answer was yes. So that tells me that money is an issue for us to be properly staffed within our fire department to promote not only the people that respond to your all's calls safely, but to keep you safe. And so if we've got dormant money sitting there that could be put to good use, then that's what we have to solve, and that's what I would plan to do.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. All right, for the next question, we'll return to the standard format. A separate question regarding funding here for each of you, and after each question, the other person will have the 1 minute to reply. First, Mr. Nelson, how successful has the city been in securing alternative funding through grants, private donations, and federal and state funding to augment the city budget?
Man, we have done great this year. We've got money in the federal budget. We've got a $1 million appropriation in the federal budget this year, if it gets passed, to help with the water plant. We got a $5 million grant, matching grant to help us take some septic tanks, take some package plants away from the trailer parks, 4 trailer parks, so that we can meet our BMAP, which is our Basin Management Action Plan. We've got a $1 million grant for WEWA. We've got $250,000 for taking septic tanks out of Camp WEWA, converting them over to sewer. We haven't done as well in police and fire, but when you've got a fire department that's rated over 100, that's what, when they're looking at these grants, they're looking at fire departments that are struggling. Our fire department isn't struggling, so we don't need, we'd love to have it, and we could make use of it, but when you're sitting at 100 on a scale of 1 to 100, how much better can you get? The squad system has worked. We've always been able to get to the fires faster with a squad vehicle than we have with a big fire truck. So to say that the fire trucks, adding another personal fire truck is going to help, no, we're going to have 4 people that fire when the fire truck gets there. So we've done a lot with grants. We've got Nicole Kennedy that's helped Dr. Jackson. So we got 2 people. Even got Justin, who works over at the museum, helping find different grants. We are really on all cylinders. There's a lot of money out there that we need to get. And the last one would be the Wekiva Glen septic to wastewater treatment plants. The mini ones, we've got about $2 million there as well. So done very, very well this year in grant funding for our city.
Mr. Becker?
Sure. And kudos to the staff for getting as much as we got, $15 million, I think, in the last year. But too often we go into a budget and we're relying on grant funding for stuff that we should have been already purchasing a year, 2 years ago. I saw where my opponent's mail piece recently said that we budgeted 10 police officers and 6 firefighters, which is a misrepresentation of fact. We didn't budget for them. They were seeking grant opportunities for those positions at the time of budget approval. Those grants, none of them came through. So we had to do an appropriations re-request and fund those out of the general fund reserve balance. My posture on grants is that we should know what our costs are going to be over a 2 to 5 year horizon and be actively going after those grants in a proactive manner. Yes, $15 million sounds like a very large amount, and it is. But how provocative would it sound if we tried to fund our entire general fund through grant funding? Not to say that that would happen, but if we're trying to hit 100% of the grants that we apply for, let's go for $100 million. And if we get the same percentage, we can double the amount of grants that we can get. But grant funding should be, you're going for grants, and it should be, after you've gone through those grants based off your 2 to 5 year horizon, then if you can't get it, that's when you bake it into your budget.
Wait a minute, so we need to go back. So the the 5-year, you can't get grants based on just that you want to fund it. You have to have it in the 5-year work plan. So these grants, like the police officers and the firefighters, if we've got them in our budget, you can't go get a grant. I mean, it's pretty simple. The $5 million, we had 3 days to put together a proposal. My team worked really, really hard to put that together to get the $5 million with 3 days. So there are times when an opportunity comes up. The Camp Weewa purchase, we had to go back. We got a retroactive $1 million for that. Who knew Camp Weewa was going to drop into our lap? And we hadn't had the finances to buy that. We'd be sitting there looking at houses.
Our 5-year work plan would show a ramp up so that we could properly staff our apparatus. So of course I'm not going to go for just 6, whereas they say, oh, that's already 6 are in your plan. My thing we probably need 30 more officers. Who knows? But it's well above what we would have planned. And thank you for saying that Camp Weewa fell into our lap.
All right, thank you. So I had that public safety question for later, so I let that one go. All right, now back to our scheduled questions. Mr. Becker, we're going to ask a question that was sent to you. And I think you may have addressed this earlier, and another chance now. If elected mayor, do you plan on hiring a full-time economic coordinator to attract more development of small businesses and retail services?
Unequivocally, yes. That's a department that needs to have a person leading that effort, city-led. That way, our council, me as the strong mayor, our senior team, we can grab face masks of each other and say, why aren't we doing what we told our residents that we're going to do? So absolutely, I'm going to fight for that, build consensus amongst our council to show the value proposition of having an entity like that. And again, like I sold on it earlier, that person should know all of the lands that are within the city of Apopka. It should know all the entitlements that sit on those lands. It should know every owner of that land to say, what's your plans for it? So that way, when we're out having chats with people outside of our city, or going to conferences, or going to whomever, talking to, Sally at the bowling alley, you can say, and you have someone who can articulate what we're trying to get to in Apopka. And it's not me up here making things up. I mean, just back in 2015, 2016, they had the Grow Apopka initiative that surveyed folks like this in this room. It was a very comprehensive facilitated aspect of things, and it's all the things that we're discussing in here. So I know that it's how I've positioned it at the door. It's how I've talked to people about hiring this position, and it's very well received. If the outcome, and that's what we're trying to drive towards, is outcomes that this person or this position can facilitate.
Any rebuttal response?
Well, Grow Apopka, which is the partnership between the Apopka Chamber and the city of Apopka, is that conduit that we go out and reach out to the businesses. Today, Francisco said, hey, I need the demographics for Apopka. I said, hey, go to the Grow Apopka. You can go in there and you can find out exactly what you need to be able to make that decision of whether Apopka is where you want to come to. As far as the demographics, we can do that. We can show them, and it's a real-time website with nice graphics that everybody can go to, and if they're coming in from out of town, they know what they want. They know what they need to hear from you. So you want the mayor, the strong mayor, to be able to do that. And when you talk about the cost, okay, it's 1% property tax increase. So if you're fine with 1%, that's fine. And this 1% is what this economic development director is going to cost you. As to the Grow Apopka little brochure we put out before I got in the office under Kilsheimer and Becker, they spent $170,000 on that thing. And it's a bookend is all it is today. So, it's great. We've had to make changes. We've had to look at restaurants.
Time.
A year ago, restaurants, we couldn't have, we wanted to get rid of drive-throughs. Today, restaurants not coming to Apopka without a drive-through.
Okay, thank you. Moving on now.
Get a rebuttal, right?
Now, you had the direct question, so he got a rebuttal.
Oh, you're not asking both?
On that one, that was a standard format.
Gotcha.
We'll move on, though. Now, this is a question to both of you. You'll each get 2 minutes in a row, and then you'll get a 1-minute rebuttal each if you want it. And this one is about what I call uniting the city, and this is about South Apopka. What is your position on annexing South Apopka into the city? And we'll start over here with Mr. Becker.
Sure. Well, this is an easy one to answer. because the easy answer, first and foremost, is to have the conversation first. My opponent is unwilling to schedule a workshop that 2 members of our council on many occasions have asked for to talk about potential annexation of South Apopka. Because you can't form a decision, a yes or no answer, without all the facts related to making it happen. Because if you do it en masse, you would have to annex by ordinance. No one's going to vote to annex into the city unless they know what the value proposition is for themselves first. And to understand that, you have to know the makeup of South Apopka. What's the cost of annexing the South Apopka into the equation? Now, a lot of people will anecdotally say, if we annex South Apopka, the cost of service will go way up. That might be true in the first year, 2 years, but that should not be an obstacle for us to have the conversation because it's anecdotal. What we should have in the conversation is how many residents do we have down there? How many residential structures? How many commercial structures? And what that allows us to do is understand the impacts that would be financially. Impact fees, cost of hooking up to water and sewer, all these things that you would need to do to create the business case so that people knew what it would take to annex them in a mass format. I'm willing to have that conversation. My opponent's not. And we should. Time and time again, people in South Apopka have talked about how they want additional patrols in that area. I think we can do it with our Apopka Police Department. We have a great department. Beautification. If we can get some cohesiveness there, it just makes everything better. And if you look at it from a map perspective, we're slowly enveloping South Apopka for the city of Apopka proper anyways, and that's going to create a true enclave. So we need to have the conversation. I'm willing to do that.
Happy to do that. I just don't think right now is the right time. I want to get through this budget year. I think next year will be a perfect time to do that. But let me just tell you some of the things that we've done. As an Orange County Commissioner for 3.5 years, I've got a real good relationship with Orange County. And I can tell you, we just had a meeting this week with Orange County Sheriff's Department about some of the crime issues in South Apopka. So we're coordinating our efforts, which have been much better under this administration than the past, to come together and work on those issues that are important to South Apopka, crime being number one. We also have to look at, okay, Bridges Center does a lot of great things in South Apopka on 17th Street, on 13th Street. But think about the cost of Bridges Center. We got the Head Start program, which we have no ability to run that. We've got Head Start, we've got Boys and Girls Club, we got Boy Scouts. A lot of those programs that Orange County operates that will cost the city lots and lots of dollars. Now, it's funny, as I was talking to Mayor Demings about the issue of South Apopka, he said, we can, because we're a much bigger, much larger organization, we can absorb South Apopka. He said, but let me tell you about Islesworth. Windermere wanted to incorporate Islesworth because the tax dollars, he said, we're not giving that up. He said, but if you want to take South Apopka, we'd be happy to give it to you. So it's not we need to work better with Orange County. That has to be a top priority, but we can work together with the county taking the lead role and the brunt of the financial obligations.
Okay, 1 minute rebuttal from each.
Sure. I'm just curious, maybe these are rhetorical questions, but why next budget year? Why do we have to always look forward? Why look at it next year? Why not now? Why does it always get treated into this like transactional exchange? We need to understand what the people of South Apopka are truly wanting for their own community, understanding all the financials that go around it, and just sell them on the value proposition of annexing into the city. Yes, cost of service will go up initially, but as you build that community up and get them layered into our services, which I would argue are better than Orange County, it will improve that level of service. And if it's funding perspective, if we can do a city, county, state funding practice, if it's good enough for septic to sewer, it's good enough for South Apopka. And 1 minute.
All right, well, yes, when I was in the state legislature, one of my last years there, I had a $250,000 appropriation for South Apopka to convert one of the streets nearest the dump to city water. So I understand what it takes to move it over. But when you look at the value of the homes in South Apopka, and when you take the $50,000 homestead exemption, there are not a lot of dollars to go toward meeting a budget. So, I mean, to say that it's going to meet its needs, no way with the money that's out there. The commercial district in South Apopka, very few, we need to grow it. We need to grow it for sure, but there are not a lot of dollars that are being generated sales tax or property tax dollars because of the commercial side of the South Apopka. So it sounds great, and we're happy to do it, but, when you look at where we've been the last, 2 years with COVID, we got to make sure that we're in a position not to take it for next year, but if you can't take it for the next 2 decades, then it's not something we should be looking at as a city.
Okay, we're going back to a couple individual questions now. We'll be on the standard format of a 2-minute answer and then into a 1-minute rebuttal. The first one was directed to Mr. Becker. Can you please explain your reactions, your actions regarding the RFP on Station Street?
Absolutely. So the RFP process is a unique one versus other city business that goes out. We've talked about developing the Station Street area, which sits adjacent to this building, for many years now. Back in 2018, when my opponent was elected, his staff had committed to getting an RFP out to the street in 2018, December of 2018. That slipped to 2019, Q1, and fast forwarded to August 2022, or 2021. We all know that this has to anchor the success of our downtown area, combined down to the city center development. My concern is that after all this time, we had one RFP response. Staff was not able to articulate to me all of the activities that they had done to drum up interest on this prior to the cone of silence. We had one bid come back, and the bid that came in had donors who were max contributors to my opponent's campaign. In fact, one had hosted a major fundraiser at his house in Winter Park. And so when we had one RFP combined with the concept that they didn't divulge during our council meeting, even though the cone of silence in our RFP stopped at the beginning of that meeting, they could have voiced what they were trying to do in that concept, but it was never done. And so I voiced my concerns because I want to make sure that the residents of Apopka feel like we have a process that's fair and on the up and up and principled. And so I used my principles to voice and motion to reject the bid. It was unanimously voted to reject, including my opponent. There was no advocacy for that RFP by my opponent. And it's not to say that that's done. That RFP can go back out to the street. I hope that it will, and I hope that we advocate for the best possible outcome, and that would be a multiple bid situation.
Well, let's say this, that the commissioners, we always give them the opportunity to meet with staff about the issues coming up in the next council meeting. For the last year, the commissioner doesn't think that's worthy of sitting in with the staff. So didn't meet with staff about the RFP. And it wasn't about the RFP, folks. This was the opportunity for them to go to negotiate with Tony Benj. Yes, he donated to my campaign. But that was for him to be able to negotiate with our team. That's all that was. If we didn't like the opportunity that was given to us by Tony Benj, then we could have rejected it. So to say that you rejected the opportunity to negotiate a single bid because we have a brownfield designation on that property, which means the value of money becomes much more important because you can't borrow against brownfield properties. So we've lost that opportunity. We're going to look like fools when it comes to the Orlando Business Journal because we didn't take at least the opportunity to come back with a proposal that we could accept or reject.
You rejected it too.
Okay. So far, gentlemen, thank you for adhering to the rules. I hope everybody will continue to do that. Okay, direct question now to Mr. Nelson. Why does the city want to get involved in defunct golf courses? Shouldn't this be up to investors and residents of those courses?
I don't want to get involved in defunct ones. I want to get involved in operating ones. So, I've been, when I first got elected, obviously, Errol and Rock Springs Ridge both were struggling. And so I'm just trying to make an opportunity there for the homeowners to get the property back, get the golf course back, and have enough development around it to make that work for the communities. So for Errol Estates, had a deal, had the sellers, the Klein family taken the deal, we could have gotten 200 homes, not impacting the backyards of people, and yet had a golf course up and running for about $20 to $25 a month for non-golf course front lots, and up to $50 maybe a month for golf course frontage lots. It's on the website, the City of Apopka. Go take a look at it. We did a lot of work, had a lot of folks that were helping me kind of design this plan, looking at the financials, the spreadsheets. We had a plan that would have worked for Errol, and we had a plan to work for Rock Springs Ridge. So we hope to get it back. We hope we can get the golf group to come back and negotiate with us on the property at Rock Springs Ridge, And we hope the Klein family will come to their senses and make a deal that we can have that golf course back with a clubhouse, pool, tennis courts, and something that they'd be proud of.
Thank you. No.
Yeah, and so I won't even get into Errol in this one because there's enough on the Rock Springs Ridge. My opponent decided to unilaterally in April 27th of last year, and please feel free to go to YouTube, tout the aspect of doing a land swap and a tri-party agreement with the golf group and the HOA of the Rock Springs Ridge, even so much as to having a piece of paper outlining the financials around it, $6,000 lease back of the HOA to the city while we possessed it. Every single public hearing since then, he's walked back that position, said that he never supported the land swap, never supported a tri-party agreement. One of the nice things of COVID, the benefits of COVID, is that all of our proceedings now are on YouTube. I would encourage you to go out and look at those videos. Rock Springs Ridge, yeah, the city shouldn't be in the business of running and operating golf courses. Rock Springs Ridge, I have full commitment that I'm going to honor their PUD, which is currently standing, and that's my commitment, and it always has been.
Okay, going back to a question now for both of you. You'll each have 2 minutes to reply, and then a rebuttal after that if needed. What steps are necessary for revenue growth to fund your agendas in the next 4 years? Will that include property taxes, any increases in taxes? We will start with Mr. Becker.
Sure. I mean, it's a multi-pronged approach. There's no silver bullet in terms of revenue or funds to fund your city. It's got to be a multi-pronged approach. Your tax rate is certainly one thing. Growing your tax base, your rich tax base, like industrial or commercial more so, or equally so. But I had a conversation with a developer the other day, and they said, hey, we don't mind if you increase your fees in the permitting process or the building process because we have fees that are materially lower than other municipalities. We don't mind paying additional fees because we are so low if it means that we get a more efficient government. We get in a more efficient process out of our city hall experience. And so there's frustrations there. So if you look at maximizing and normalizing your fee structure, your fee schedule, and then too, if we go back to the Camp Weewa, when we were contemplating the purchase of that location, my opponent always felt like it was status quo for that to be a loss leader for our city, meaning we were going to take a large loss like we do the rest of our Parks and Rec space, which is almost 80%, versus making sure that that's an entity or an asset that operates and pays for itself. Every dollar that we lose in the Parks and Recs is another dollar that we don't have for public safety or other critical needs within our city. So you optimize your fee structure, you get revenue sources that we can use through Camp Weewa, doing something like pavilions and park spaces that are available for rent. Even my opponent was talking about how when he was first elected, first of all, he was going to cut the symphony, but then saw the value in it and said that it should pay for itself, and yet we don't have sponsorship for that. That's a $30,000 to $40,000 expenditure that we should be finding sponsorships to do these things for our city as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and my business background, I feel like I can lead that conversation.
Commissioner Nelson.
Okay, the sports programs at Apopka, I hope we don't have to raise the rates because there's a lot of kids out there that's struggling to make it ends meet. But I know we put together, we had a program out there or some scoreboards that the commissioner voted on, this group out of North Carolina that sat blank for a couple of years, reached out to Advent Health, and so they came in as our partner. We now have $10,000 that goes towards sports scholarships. So the kids that can't afford to be in Pop Warner or Little League or soccer, they're able to get some money to help toward the cost of that. We also, with that Advent partnership, we were able to put in a nice little fitness center on the backside of the pond at Jason Dwelly. So we've done a lot of things. Camp Weewa is a great gym. It's a beautiful gym, but obviously it's if we can get to break even, I'd be happy. I mean, look at, obviously the YMCA didn't get rid of it because it was a big profit center, but I'll tell you this, we had Lowe's come in, help us, probably spent with all their sweat equity, north of $100,000 helping us get that thing up to where it's pristine. We're now working on a project with a company out of Canada to put in a ropes course. They're going to help partner with us to do that. That will also make Camp Weewa even a better place for our campers to go and make us even more world-renowned as far as summer camps for the youth here in the greater Central Florida area.
1 minute.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I didn't hear of funding kind of conversation out of that response. And the famous scoreboard debacle, I get it. But at the end of the day, we paid $46,000 for capital improvements that we would have done anyways. So yeah, we got scoreboards, and I'm not sure how Advent Health fits into it, but the scoreboards were an expenditure that the city did, and I get that. But that's what we would have paid in the market anyways. We were trying to enter into a rev share agreement with the company that they went into. Unfortunately, that company went under. No one had a crystal ball at the time. But I certainly appreciate Advent Health's sponsorship of our park space, and that's the type of sponsorships that we need to get across the board, not just in our parks and recs areas, but some of the events that we want to have in the city of Apopka. So.
1 minute.
Well, I'll give you one. We did probably one of the biggest concerts we ever had at the amphitheater. That was John Anderson and Sawyer Brown. And we almost broke even on a big concert that was just, 4,000 or 5,000 people showed up. So it was a great event. A lot of, having two, former Apopkans come out to Apopka and be a part of a big event. We were so excited, and we were able to get a lot of sponsorships, T-shirt sales and sponsorships. We came close to break even. It was really exciting. We need to get a sponsorship for the amphitheater. We're working on a couple of folks that might want to come in and be that corporate sponsor. But, right now with COVID, people are still a little nervous. Do they want to come out? Yes, I think they're starting to come out. And I'll tell you, the concert series has been an absolute hit. And yes, it doesn't make any money. Doesn't make a nickel. But I can tell you, there's a lot of folks that love coming out there on Saturday nights and listening to a great band, listening to Philharmonic, come out and, bring your picnic basket, and have a good time. So it's really been successful, and we're going to keep plugging along with the Saturday Sounds.
Okay, a question to both of you now, and this regards the city center. Why is the city center still undeveloped, and how would you speed up the development? And we'll start with Mr. Nelson.
Well, I didn't sign the first agreement, and so we're trying to work our way through the agreement that was not very well written, and it was obviously voted on by my opponent. So, when you give them 10 years to do something, that's a long time. So what we were able to do, because they needed something with a fountain in the back, we were able to shorten that time period. But just think about this, folks. My opponent sold the Highland Manor for $300,000. That is the crown jewel of Apopka. And he voted in that agreement to sell the Highland Manor for $300,000. I can't get that back. Now, it's extremely successful. The hotel is just kicking it on all, 8 cylinders. With the restaurant I was talking to today, they like the concept that they could do the rehearsal dinners there. Starbucks is excited about coming. So we've got in the food court with the brewery, we are set to explode. I would say Winn-Dixie's coming. There's one of these brand new prototype Winn-Dixies that you will all be proud of. We've got a lot of things happening, and obviously Thursday morning, 11 o'clock, please come on out. We've got a groundbreaking at the town center for the Starbucks and the food and brewery. So come on out, 11 o'clock on Thursday.
I take full accountability for every single vote that I've taken in city council. But the developers agreement that we've had with Taurus has been modified during this administration. So if there was faults in the original, there's been opportunity for us to fix it in subsequent versions. So if we haven't chosen to do so, my opponent needs to have some sort of accountability there as well. These announcements are interesting because last I checked of my email, I'm not quite sure that we got notification of a groundbreaking where my opponent describes. And in fact, the last city council meeting where we talked about this particular location, the applicant had not taken ownership of that parcel of land yet. Now, I do see on our agenda for Wednesday that there's an update here, but I'm curious as to how there's a groundbreaking for something that's still not technically their property. Maybe it's a fluid situation that I don't know. But also, there needs to be accountability about the vision of this project. My opponent's staff signed a piece of paper for subsidized housing to go within this particular location, saying that there was no constraints, no entitlement constraints for subsidized housing to go here, even though it was very crystal clear that it was a prohibited use within that development agreement that he describes. So how does that impact what the future of the city center looks like? We don't know. But I do know that if we had somebody that's in economic development that can partner alongside companies like Taurus or others that are trying to come here, I think it would have a better outcome. But the vision has vastly changed, and we don't know what's to come because we get claims that he didn't know about his own staff member signing a piece of paper that set in motion subsidized funding to support some residential that's going in the city center area.
Okay, guys, we're getting near the end, so I want to try to get a couple more questions in, unless you feel a
Well,
big urge to rebut. You want to do, oh, that's fine.
the
Go ahead.
subsidized housing, no, it wasn't. The agreement was we were having housing, so I think that's disingenuous. And yes, they purchased the property, was it Friday? I think Thursday or Friday. So yeah, they do own the property where the Starbucks and the food hall are going to go, but as the subsidized housing, never agreed to it. I mean, Orange County agreed to it. I'm not Orange County. We're the city of Apopka. So, Jim Hitt's in charge of the community development, and neither one of us knew there was anything to do with subsidized housing. So that's kind of a disingenuous answer.
Well, I'll rebut that by saying the application from the Florida department that handles this operates in subsidized housing. Jim Hitt is a member of your staff.
Yeah.
You're the strong mayor
Right.
form of government.
Yeah.
You should know all of the things that happen within your staff. And signing that application basically set in motion expectations that this type of product could come to that city center. And don't mix my words. There's affordable housing needs, low-income housing needs in our city. Where it's the location, is that the right anchor for our downtown commercial corridor? That's where I have a struggle. But you need to be accountable.
Okay, how's everybody doing? Can we do 2 more questions before our final? Everybody is good with that. All right. This is a question to each of you, a different question, submitted by one of our retirees, a disabled veteran. I'll ask each of you individually the direct question, and the other one will have a chance for the rebuttal if needed. And we'll start with Mr. Nelson. The question is, what can you do about controlling the growth of cookie-cutter neighborhoods with zero property lot lines, citizens, and paying outrageous prices for smaller homes? Tough one.
I can't do much with the price of homes. That's, obviously that's the way we're heading. But I'll tell you, one of the things I've just done here in the last several months is we got a little money in community development that I use for big developments where I want a third set of eyes. Obviously, the developer comes in with a project he wants us to take a look at. He lays out how it should look, and then our staff takes a look at it, and the whole staff, so we got a great staff, 5 people, 6 people, all looking at this. But I've got another gentleman that will go in and take just a third look at that, just to make sure there aren't some ways that will make that project better. But as we go through these projects, you always try to say, well, can I get another 250 square feet out of the builder? Instead of being 1,250, can I get 1,500 square foot for a house? Or instead of 1,750, can I get 2,000 square feet? So we try to bump those numbers where we can to get a less higher priced house. Because what happens is, one of the things I've always asked our League of Cities is, at what point does a house break even as far as ad valorem to the services that you provide? And I can't ever get a real good answer, but when you look at all the homestead exemptions, you got to say, okay, where's that line where at $300,000, that home at least breaks even as far as the services that we provide, police, fire, community development, parks and rec. So it's nice if we can figure out what that number is, and so we make sure that we try to get as many of those houses above that threshold so that we're not having to subsidize as many houses from a property tax point of view.
And a 1-minute rebuttal, sir?
Sure. Most recently we did the land development code rewrite back in, I think, 2019. One of the things that I fought to get removed from our land development code was small lot straight zoning classifications, meaning you couldn't take a 100-acre parcel of land and do straight, like, say, 30 to 40-foot wide lot homes on that property. You have to work that into a mixed-use type of development, because the whole spirit of mixed use in today's development standards is you have a nice mixture of some of your small lot products counterbalanced with some of your larger lot products to keep that open space aesthetic. And what that does is, and especially in the city of Apopka, it creates life cycle opportunities for maybe some of your younger home buyers that are entering into the market. And then as you go up in age, you are trying to find homes that may be a little bit bigger, have a little bit more room to spread out. But I fought for land development code changes to make sure that we got rid of those small lot overlays or those small lot zoning, as well as other land development code changes that kept and protected open space here within the city of Apopka.
Okay, and thank you. And now, that same citizen's question to you, sir, is, and you can elaborate if you so choose, would you advocate to investors and home builders to build larger homes and remind the Americans that they can afford such homes.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it comes down to like one of my opponent's remarks a second ago. You have to understand kind of the commercials around home building. And so, but certainly if we talk about jobs, if we talk about, I see we have representatives from Advent Health or other health areas, maybe their executives want a certain home product when they relocate to a city like Apopka. And I think our demographics, our socioeconomic demographics would support having larger homes within our area. We certainly have zoning classifications for more estate type of properties or large lots. And it's all about mixture, a balance of home product. So every small lot you want to counterbalance with a bigger lot and so forth. But I think there's a value proposition here within the city of Apopka where we can certainly talk about a need for that type of housing.
Yeah, we need all sorts of housing. We need the small, condominium. You need the large estate homes and everything in between. Because when a big employer comes into town, they need to see that they've got a wide mix of not only affordable houses but estate homes for their executives. So you've got to have that whole mix of housing products, from apartments to condominiums to townhomes to estate homes and everything in between. So yeah, it's mixed use or even mixed products within the same subdivision is what makes sense. The problem is you have to have a big enough lot to make that happen. So we've got a big project looking at on Kelly Park, could be up to 1,000 units, but there's everything from a large estate home down to apartments and everything in between. So the people can all congregate around the amenities they have, and yet have that broad mix of product types.
Now I've lost myself. Is that a question? Do you need a rebuttal on that? Where are we?
I thought you had asked it to me, but.
Yes, that's right. Okay, very good. All right, guys. I'm trying to keep up with time here. We are running out of time. I enjoyed that question. It's interesting to hear from our residents, and housing is not something that you may have expected to talk about, but I think that's an interesting topic. As is the next question, which I'm going to give you guys a very open-ended question, which is from a resident, 2 minutes each, and it's going to give you an opportunity to address what you want to address. What do you feel are the most important challenges facing our community, and how do you propose to address them? We'll start with Mr. Becker.
Yeah, I mean, when I first kicked off the campaign, I was trying to do my platform positions. Economic development is something I've talked about for 6 years. But, it's, like I said in my opening remarks, it's getting to the basics first. When we had the last budget workshop and we're talking about doing a tenth of a mil reduction, which equates to about $12 to $15 in each one of our pocketbooks for an entire year, I went around our city and took pictures of places that were in extreme need of care, whether it be overgrown vegetation, entryways into our city that were lacking, not respective of Apopka, infrastructure needs, things like that. I put that in front of our council, but I was accused of grandstanding. And most recently, we had a resident come in, business owner, has done a lot of construction, and talked about the litter, talked about lighting, talked about conditions of the road. We've got to do that first. Like I've said many times, residents and people that visit our city eat with their eyes first, meaning our city's got to look right. It's got to look like something that we're proud to call home first. And when I get into office, that's my first order of business. Within my first 100 days, though, it's all about getting staff buy-in. And you can only get staff buy-in if you have a strategic plan in which to do so. We have to anchor our employees. We have to anchor our residents to understand what our mission is, what are our values driving us from an administration standpoint. How do we judge and gauge success of our city?
30.
And that's something that I will get in place day one or within the first 100 days, because our staff, in terms of morale, which is low, has to understand what we're trying to do as an administration, and then by extension, the residents will as well. So, start small, but big things will happen.
Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. Well, I guess we go back, we got into office, the reserves were low. And let me just tell you what they did is they took $400,000 under his leadership along with Kilsheimer. They took $400,000 out of our utilities. 2 years before that, before he got into office, so I won't give him credit for that one, they took $1 million out of the utilities and took it over to general funds. Now, I don't know where that money went, don't know where it was spent on, but they spent it. So we had to come in and fix things. So my first 4 years, I replaced the roofs on the Annex, City Hall, Station 1, and Public Works, first year. We've got $2.8 million in road improvements going on this next year. So we'll get a lot, we'll be above all of the cities within the Central Florida area as far as the quality of the road surface. We've got $400,000 we put into lights, adding LED lights, putting new lights in. We've added $300,000 for landscaping. You're right, we haven't done a lot with our landscaping, but think about this, folks. COVID's affected a lot of different businesses, and landscapers have really been impacted. So I don't know how many people have seen out on Saturday or Sunday, the guys out there mowing the right-of-ways. That's because they can't get it done on Monday through Friday. So they're out there, they're hustling as hard as they can to get the grass mowed, get the things picked up out of the right-of-ways. We also have, as a city, we've had a lot of silos out there. A lot of the departments worked in the silo versus collaborative effort. So we've put together money in there for training to try to get us out of those silos. The Public Works needs to work with community development. Community development needs to work with finance. Finance needs to work with Parks and Rec. Getting that collaborative effort amongst all of our departments has been a challenge, no doubt about it. But we are making progress. And I feel like the city has really come a long way in 4 years, and the next 4 years will be brighter and brighter.
A rebuttal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it needs 4 years for basic collaboration amongst staff in order to get that going. I mean, 4 years is way too long. He keeps on saying the reserve is low. How low? Give me a number. Be specific. Because our reserve balance has not dropped below 16.67%, which is the floor comfort level, which is basically 2 months of operating expenditures. It's never dipped below that during my time on city council. So for us to say that the reserve balance has been low or in a danger zone, give me a break, because it's just not unsubstantiated. In fact, I've got our certified financial statements. If you want to meet me after the meeting, I will point to you exactly where this is evidenced. The road improvements, we had to wait for a study for almost a year, and we still relied on staff to prioritize the streets for us. It was a waste of a year. We should have been doing road improvements because it was money or data to suggest that minimal investment in maintaining the roads pays off long term. Thank you.
And you're above.
Okay, well, let's go back. Dirt sales. We took dirt sales, which should have gone to utilities. We put that in the general fund reserve. So yeah, those dollars were in the wrong department. So they should never have been there in general reserves. And under his leadership, we added $3 million in debt for tasers and for stretchers and for cars. Under my administration, we've reduced the overall indebtedness by $10 million, which equates to $1.5 million in free cash flow that we can use to do roads, to do lights, to do Parks and Rec. So we have done a lot with a little. And when you take it, the COVID impacted our budget by over $3 million last year, and probably be another $1.5 million this year. We are proud of the team that we put together that have really taken an interest in not spending the money not like you'd want to spend it as your own, but like, as I tell my employees, spend it like it's your mother's money, which is much more important than your own money. So we've done a lot with a little, and proud of the team I've assembled here. And I challenge my opponent to find anybody in leadership that's not better than the person that left before me.
Okay, folks, that's going to bring us to the end of the question phase. And I think that was a great exercise in democracy to hear the questions from the residents, from the citizens. So I hope you all enjoyed that. If you submitted a question, whether you're in our audience or online, I hope you got the answer that you needed, and that will help you make the vote. It is time for your concluding statements. You will each get another 2 minutes now for your final statements. And I'm going to throw a couple things in here, just general things that were asked. For example, Mr. Nelson, why do you think you deserve a second term? If you would address that in your closing statement. Mr. Becker, tell me the first thing you will work on if you got elected, if you could get that in there. And for both of you, what your vision is for Apopka. People want to know, what do you hope it will look like in 5 years? Sort of some things to include in there, if you can, in your concluding statements. And we'll start with Mr. Becker.
Great. Thank you again for hosting tonight. You know, it was funny when we were doing some preparations for this debate tonight. My youngest daughter, Lucy, was involved in some of these conversations, and she asked me a question that kind of gave me pause, and it was something very easy. It's how are you going to make the community better? And it's one of those broad questions that warrants a whole bunch of answers, because better is different for a lot of different people. Thing about community in Apopka, the community is our people. And by extension, our people are our families. We're a very diverse. We have a 24% black population, 27% Hispanic population. We're a diverse city, but what we all have in common is that we're family oriented. And so really at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is make sure that we have as many family opportunities to do things with our families close to home. Too many times we're packing into our car, going elsewhere to enjoy a good time, a good Saturday night out, but that should be enjoyed here within the city of Apopka. So what am I going to do when I get elected to the office? I talked about 100-day plan, creating a strategic plan for our city, because that way we all are marching in the same direction. We all know what our priorities are as a city, as a staff, as the residents that interact with our government. And in order to substantiate, or in order to drive my agenda would be to create the economic development director. You know, people in government tend to say adding employees creates bureaucracy, but you know, that's kind of a bad way to look at it. As long as every employee that works for our city has some sort of value add, and we can articulate that value add to each one of our residents, I want to hire to get to where we want to go as a city. I don't want to sit here and have a conversation about how I rubbed nickels together or I did things on the cheap, because we're not a poor community. We're a community that wants certain things, and in order to do that, we have to invest in it to realize our full potential. So I would appreciate your vote in March. I have the skill set, I've got the experience to lead our city. I'm proactive, I'm reactive, and I really enjoy doing all the service that I am doing for the city of Apopka. So I would greatly appreciate your vote March 8th, and thank you so much for listening to our dialogue here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. Thanks, Business Force and Duke Energy. It's been an honor. Growing up here in Apopka, married my wife, been here, gosh, in the same house 31 years, I guess, and enjoyed every minute of it. Coached soccer, coached Little League, been a part of this community forever. And so, you know, I've got the experience and the, you know, the passion for this city. Let me give you an example. Just 2 nights ago, we knew it was going to be cold, and so we're looking. Obviously, it's a Saturday night, so churches, you know, obviously we normally go to the First Methodist, which both Commissioner Becker and I both attend, but they couldn't have the folks in there on Sunday morning. So I reach out, I go, well, the VFW is available, but let's see what else is out there. So I reach out to the First Presbyterian Church, which my mom is a member of, and said, hey, can you help us out? Can we take the fellowship hall because they're not having services this year? I go, can we use your fellowship hall for the folks that are cold? And so she gets off with the deacons and the elders, and they said, I think we can make that happen. So because they're a small church, they didn't have enough people to stay, you know, the midnight shifts. So I reach out to First Baptist, First Methodist, even had other churches got involved that donated blankets, donated jackets. I mean, that's what we have here in Apopka. That's our community. And it's such a wonderful place that we can all call home, but we have to protect what we have, that small town feel we have here in Apopka. And I promise you, if I'm your mayor for another 4 years, we'll make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and please, everybody, one more final round of applause for both candidates. Your candidates for mayor.
Thank you to our candidates, our moderator, and our attendees. We encourage everyone to continue learning about our candidates and their positions on these key issues. Don't forget to vote on March 8th. Early voting is right here at the VFW Community Center from March 1 to March 6 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Join us next week on February 7th for the Commissioners Forum, 6 to 7 p.m. here at the VFW. Have a great evening.
Wait.
Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Thank you to our moderator. Thank you all for coming.